Welcome to today's lesson, where we're going to break down the major scale in the easiest and most beginner-friendly way possible. If you've ever felt confused by music theory, don't worry. In this video, I'll explain everything step by step so you can start using the major scale confidently on your guitar. This lesson is part of a complete series designed to help beginners learn music theory in the simplest way, but we'll cover more advanced theory later on. So, if you want to keep improving, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next part. Now, let's get started. If you don't know what a scale is, it's a set of notes played in a specific order. Scales serve as the foundation for melodies, solos, cadences, minor scale, intervals, chord progressions, and more. The major scale is one of the most important scales in music, as it forms the basis for everything and is used across all genres. The major scale formula. Every scale follows a pattern of whole steps and half steps. In order to understand the formula of the major scale and any other scale, we need to understand what a whole step and a half step are. If we look at the fretboard, we can understand this in the clearest way. Moving up or down one fret from our starting point is a half step, while moving up or down 2 frets is a whole step. The major scale follows this exact pattern. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Let's break down the major scale formula and see how it looks when played on a single string. Later on, we'll explore how to apply this concept across multiple strings. Keep in mind that the major scale can begin on any note, and it always follows this structure. To understand this concept in the most efficient way, we will use the C major scale. We specifically choose this scale because all of its notes are natural, with no flats or sharps. This formula applies to any key, and we can start from any note on the fretboard. On a single string, we can see the entire scale with the spacing based on its formula. If you are in the key of C and want to play the C major scale, this is exactly how it looks. There's no need to guess it, just remember its formula. Between C and D, there is a distance of 1 whole step. Between D and E, there is a distance of 1 whole step. Between E and F, there is a distance of half step. And so on, following the formula. We can play this scale in different positions on the guitar and gradually understand how to play it across multiple strings. Let's take a look at the scale on the A string. And now, let's look at it on the D string. If you've noticed, on the same string, we have additional notes that repeat and are part of the scale. Therefore, we can play them as well. I've marked them in a different color so you can see them, but they are the exact same notes that belong to the scale. Don't forget that all the examples I'm showing you are based on C as our root note, but you can change the root note to any other note, and the pattern will remain exactly the same. Now that we know our scale and its notes, all that's left to do is play these notes across multiple strings. This way, we'll get the notes of the C major scale spread over several strings in a clear shape that we can play in any key. We can continue playing the same notes on the remaining strings and reach another octave of C. I've marked them in blue. You can see that a very clear pattern is forming. We can experiment with this formula however we like, and as long as we maintain the interval structure, we will always have all the notes of the C major scale anywhere we choose on the fretboard. We can create a completely different shape from the one that you see here. This allows us to vary the tone and learn the note positions instead of being locked into a single pattern. In this case, we took the notes E and A and used them in a different position. This creates a different shape, but it also allows us to have these notes close at hand, making them easily accessible whenever we want to use them. I've marked their alternative positions in green. Let's continue to the next octave in blue. If we memorize all the notes on the guitar neck, we won't have to rely on shapes, as we'll always know where our next note is and where its octave is located. However, remembering shapes is much easier, which is why over the years, fixed and widely used patterns have been developed to help guitarists remember note positions and play more smoothly. Not everyone can memorize the entire fretboard, and it takes years to feel comfortable and truly navigate it with confidence. So, let's go over the common shapes of the major scale. I'll remind you once again this applies to any key you choose. All you need to do is apply these shapes to the root note of your chosen key. We'll provide an example of this later on. Shape number 1 starts from the root note. In this case, we are in the key of C, so we begin from C, which is located on the 8th fret. This shape covers us up to another octave and even one note beyond it, the D note. This shape is widely used and serves as a great foundation for navigating the major scale across the fretboard. Shape number 2 starts from the D note. Notice that D is the second note in our scale. Shape number 3 starts at the 12th fret, and notice that we are now beginning this shape from the E note, which is the next note in the sequence. You can pause this video and take a closer look at each shape to understand and play it. Once you're comfortable, move on to the next shape and learn it. Shape number 4. This time, we are starting from the G note, skipping over F in our sequence. In the common major scale shapes, each shape begins with the next note in the sequence, but F is skipped. This happens because the shapes are designed for optimal finger positioning on the fretboard rather than strictly following the scale's linear order. If we were to start a shape from F, it would disrupt the flow and create a less comfortable fingering pattern. Instead, G is chosen as the starting point for the next shape because it naturally fits into a more playable and familiar fretboard position. This approach is based on the caged system, which organizes scale positions into shapes that maximize efficiency and fluidity across the neck. Despite skipping F as a starting note, the note itself is still present within the shapes, it's just not the most practical place to begin a new pattern. Shape number 5 starts from A, and we are now at the end of the fretboard. Let's go back for a moment to shape number 1. We've reached a situation where we start from the 8th fret without covering the shapes that come before it. Since the notes simply repeat, the shapes also repeat. Therefore, if we want to play before the 8th fret, we will use shape number 5. In this way, we gain additional notes that we can use. We will then continue to shape number 4, which will provide us with more options and also lower notes. In general, open strings can also be used as long as they are part of the scale. Now, let's give an example of key change and using the same shapes and formula, just as we did for the key of C. This way, you can use the shapes and transpose the scale to any key you want. Let's choose the key of G. You can see that we took our first shape and applied it to the key of G. From here, we will continue along the guitar neck with all the following shapes. Shape 2. Starting from the note A on the 5th fret. Shape 3. Starting from the note B on the 7th fret. You already get the idea. In any case, you can download all of this in a PDF from the description of this video, both in the full fretboard version and the simplified version. You can print it out and memorize it. You can always come back to the video and make sure you're doing everything correctly. Now that we've learned all the shapes, we can create a scale run using all of them, allowing us to play from the beginning of the guitar all the way across the fretboard. To make it easier to visualize, we will use the key of G. Let's listen to the notes on the guitar. Notice that I play this with some notes repeating. You can follow the marker and focus on the sounds. We've reached the end of the lesson. I hope I was able to help you. If so, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next lesson, which will be coming out very soon. It will also be about scales, so there's plenty to look forward to. Don't forget to practice, and of course, leave a comment if you have any questions.